Hello and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben,
And I'm Swiz.
and thank you for joining us for the Swiz Gives Shit to Mates podcast. Thank you for joining us. Before we move on, SC Insider 100, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Also search for Supercoach Insider on the YouTube. Thank you for everyone that's been commenting on that, going nuts, and all your audio platforms. This one will probably be a YouTube exclusive. So otherwise, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, you name it, find us. Just find us. Say, hey, Swiz, how are we doing here today? You have some dilemmas. Mates sending you their team saying the Royal Swiz, the Choo Choo Master, is giving advice and they're sending you shit, mate. What's going on?
Yeah, it's good. We're always happy to take some time to look at other people's teams, and a few people wanted our opinions, and then they were asking to have a look at my team, and then I was getting fucking shit canned, which was very interesting. And that, so especially when I finished inside the top 1,000 3 times out of the last 5 years, and these guys fucking back in the 20,000s and want to shit on my team.
Yeah,
So fuck them.
these young whippersnippers, they have no respect. No respect. Okay, so let's bring it up. So who is this person that we are looking at, Swizz, right now? With the
What
Zach Bailey.
the Zach fucking Bailey pick. I'm gonna have a look at
So
which one
Duncan,
we
Zach
started off with
Bailey.
here. Do we start off with Tiss's team, or do we start on the Nico's team? Fucking Zach Bailey. Oh, that's got to be Tiss's team. So yeah, so what we
Duncan,
got there in the
Zach
forward
Bailey,
line? We got
Taron
Duncan, Zach
Thomas.
Bailey, Taron Thomas. Like I don't mind what they're trying to do there, but it's just not going to score. Zach Bailey, we've talked about in the Brisbane pod. Just don't think he's got the ceiling, especially with these new DPP roles. Taron Thomas is a bit the same with North Melbourne, bringing in Greenwood. They've got a pretty stacked midfield. So, if I was looking at this and this was a keeper league, I'd be like, fucking great forward line. But for your standard, there's a lot of young players. I don't know why he's also got Dunkley in the midfield. If you're going to play Dunk, surely you just start him in the forward line. It's just taking away from a player. So,
Oh,
yeah,
I did that last year and it
yeah.
worked out okay because Dangerfield got injured early. And I was like, wonderful. And in the forward line, you get Dunkley. For me, it's the speculative nature. I mean, you've got Bailey, Thomas, and Butters, all speculative to become, top 6 to 10. And sometimes that happens, but then you have Heaney as well playing midfield. Apparently, he'll probably be the last time he'll be a forward for a little while. Old Heaney, based off all the media that they keep pumping up his tires. But yeah, Zach Bailey could go 95, 100. But again, with the DPP and the other things coming through, 95 to 100 probably isn't going to be good enough. Taron Thomas the same, probably a 90 to a 95 for me. Um, I think you just need to, if you're looking at a breakout contender, one or two. Yeah, but if you're studying premiums as well, like Duncan and obviously looking at, I've forgotten his name now, Dunkley, bloody same names basically. If you're starting with a couple of those premiums, then you don't really need to go three breakouts.
Mm. Yeah,
I
exactly.
do like Butters, and I love Zach Bailey. He's great to watch. Duncan, I think you know what you're going to get. He has a high ceiling, and Duncan has pulled a lot of good scores together for the last 4 years or so. Just his body, Duncan is just on a bit of a modified preseason at the moment, but we know at least what you're getting with him. What do you feel about Rowan Marshall? I don't know why so many people are jacked up about him.
Yeah, I think they're thinking he's now got the ruck to
Just
himself
value
and Ryder, but
and
probably a little bit of value
Darcy.
there. But I just don't. Well, it's really hard with the rucks because
It's not set in
they're
stone, hey? It's
they're
not
well
it's
that
open.
that's right. They're we don't know who's going to be the top ruck at the moment. I just think Darcy at least has got the runs on the board. Where do you go from there? If Marshall gets forward status, it means he hasn't scored enough points in those first 6 weeks. And I don't think he's going to be enough to challenge Grundy as your R2.
Yep,
And
and
I
that's my problem with R2 in general at the
yeah,
moment, and if there are cheaper options, this year, I believe, is probably the year to get away from the set and forgets because we don't know. We honestly don't know who that top 2 and 3 are going to be, and we can believe, Gawn, maybe he might maintain it, but Jackson's up and coming. You know, Darcy, his body has been fragile before. He was saying that he's been working on his running and he's been getting fitter, but then he's also been integrated back into into actual full training. So then I'm like, why hasn't he, like at the moment, why hasn't he been fully going gun ho? And then you look at Grundy, I think, will do well and is underpriced and is lighter, so he should do well. But again, you look at Marshall coming up and coming. People are talking about the big O. If you're picking these people, you are banking on them being top 2 or 3. And if they're not, then it's a failed pick, regardless of how you look at it.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
so
you
I
might as
think
well
he's
start
got a lot
cheaper.
of that youth there. And then, as you said about the forward line, it's sort of you're going Duncan and Dunkley, no problems there. But what happens if a couple of these forward? Let's say Marshall gets forward status, or Danger or Vife get forward status. So now you're hamstrung because you've got Thomas, Butters, and Bailey in there. So it's probably my advice would be lose one of these forwards. And then, if you're that bullish on Marshall, back yourself in on that. But I'd be trying to upgrade Marshall to Grundy, or look, maybe it's a tough one with
That's
that.
also
So
that's a lot of money to spend in your forward
yeah,
line too.
it is. It's a lot of money.
I
Probably,
mean, and
that would probably
that's
be
why
it.
you have to go 500,000 mid forward in your midfield.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't have much room to move there, and that's even the defense. It's
Jeez.
really light on the defense with just the 3 defenders. Like Lloyd,
And not only
great.
that,
Ridley, we
Bont
can see what he can do, and then Sicily is your D3. It's a lot of risk there.
but even now so when you look at a midfield, right, you're trying to pick, particularly when you're starting the year, I really believe you're trying to pick top 5 mids. And the reason is that as the season goes on, it's harder to get in midfielders than any other position. Forwards and defenders, they have the standard deviation that's bigger. So they have bigger fluctuations in their scores, which means that their price generally does bottom out and you can pick them up cheaper. Midfielders, better role, better standard deviation, and they're always priced higher because of that, which makes them harder to trade in. Now, that's why I actually quite like trying to start 4 or 5, midfielders, because they're hard to get in. Now, if you're starting, Walsh, you believe will be a top 6, Bontempelli a top 6, but it's like, okay, well then after that, Lockie Neal, yes, I believe great value, perfect. Dunkley, you'll probably move into the forward line, which means that you only have one more spot available in your forward line, I believe, because he had 4 forwards that he was banking on premium, and then that leaves Dunkley. So basically, it's Rochelle and Hollands. So Dunkley is one of those. So he has one
Hmm.
forward spot available, and you're trying to fill a midfield. You got Petrarca there. I don't mind it, but I, Petrarca again. You're banking on him being a top 6 to 8 or 6 to 10 midfielder. It's a funny one. The rest of the midfield I can't really fault. Chesser probably has him there for a bit of security to possibly go into defense. Not a big fan of putting 150,000 K on my bench in general, just because I like to maximize cash on field. Defense is probably where it's weak though. You look at just reliant on rookies, left, right, and center. Lloyd, Ridley, Sicily. Lloyd locked in. Sicily and Ridley are probably more speculative because you're hoping on roll and them achieving their best without any of the negative side. And then 3 rookies that you're banking on doing well and making money and keeping their spot on field. That's tough for me. Defense is the weakest line.
Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, it's probably I would say it's the sort of shit that probably wins Supercoach, but no, Emily would have not done anything like this last year. So yeah, it's one of those. Yep, I said like the midfield, but I'd probably move one of those forwards and turn them into a defender, and that'd probably balance his team out a little bit more.
Yeah, I understand the guns and rookies approach to, like the defensive line, but I have yet to see that much guarantee unless the rookies come out and look absolutely golden. Then sure, guns and rookies in the defensive line, but at this stage, it looks like you're going to need probably 4, decent players in defense to kind of cover that, similar to last year. But there's so many forward rookies and midfield rookies at this point in time, so you can definitely afford to load up in your defense a little more than elsewhere. All right, let's move on to the
Move
next
on.
one. Stuart and Richie.
Yeah, this is Nico, great bloke, great cricketer, great bowler, chucks the ball, but yeah, his team needs some serious work. He asked me today, "Well,
Well, he must be a
any advice
chucker
on my
with
time?"
throwing.
Well, I am going to rip you, Nico.
Well, he must be a chucker to be throwing fucking Alira and Young into your defensive line. Must have thrown this together with about 15 degrees of separation.
Yeah, well, he bowls with probably more than the 15 on that on the old arm, but yeah, some of these picks and like everyone plays it differently, but I think some people are getting too carried away with these sort of mid prices. The right mid-pricer, yeah, by all means, take a risk on. But what are you looking for? If we start off with the defence there, well, even the forward line, like we can mention with Georgiades, you're looking for somebody who's got that role change, and you're looking,
Who isn't there?
they've probably got that 10,
He's looking
15,
for
20
someone
point
that's not there.
improvement. But some of these players, it's just there's no role change there happening. And that Alira, we know what he's going to do. He did a great job last year, but yeah, there are better
He had a
places.
great year last year. I don't think he's going to
Yep.
top that.
No, he's not.
Do you
His
know what I mean? And
career
there's and
best
there's
year
no
there.
some people like point of differences for point of difference sake.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, if you're the only one to pick a spud, then you're the only one peeling that spud. When
Yep.
everything falls
Exactly.
down, you'll be having, Spudnik and everyone else will be living in gold. So, yeah, Alir and Young definitely should be gone. I think having a 198k defender on your bench is also a bad move. That should be on field. Let's assume that's a mistake. Um, yeah, it's a lot of money there. So I quite like, the Stewart and the Rich and the Ridley. I'm not sold on Stewart yet. I know some people are. I was even having a chat today to a big Geelong nutter at work, big fan, and I just said with Lockie Henderson gone, I'm like, who's playing accountable in their defensive line? Henry's also an intercept kind of mark who floats in, unless it's De Koning, who's a tall boy anyway. But he was, do you know what I mean? Are they going to put him back there to play accountable? Because we know Stewart played accountable against Charlie Cameron, didn't do a very good job, was running up and down, and like he played accountable on Charlie Cameron. So who's playing tall accountable for Geelong with Lockie Henderson gone?
Yeah, well, and this is where the point of difference, like the
That's why I'm
Alira
worried.
don't like, but the Stewart Rich, like I can live with that a little bit more with the point of
Yeah,
difference, even though Stewart's actually in 16% of teams. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, you make a great point about Geelong's makeup now. So does Blicavs go back? DeConning playing more games. Like they'd like to free Stewart up, and he's a great interceptor. But yeah, they're a
But I
little
don't
bit
see Henry.
light
I don't
on
see
now.
Henry playing accountable though,
Hmm,
unless it's on a
yeah,
smaller person.
exactly.
Like,
So
yeah, it's I
that
don't know.
makeup of that side, Daniel Rich, he's just going to probably do exactly what he did. I think he's probably
Yep,
a little bit overpriced that for what he is, especially if Zorko goes back down there.
yep. Agreed. I think
So I
Ridley's
just think
fair.
there are better options. And we were talking about this before about trying to, you don't need too many difference to start the season. So we know Lloyd is in 43%. I was getting bagged for having Whitfield in my side. 41%. There's not much risk. Even Sicily 33%, because a lot of the top players will have these guys. So yeah, you could drop a Lear down to a Sicily type. And you can even look at maybe Rich down to Whitfield. It's going to make you 80k there straight off, and you've got a guy that's in one out of every two teams.
Yeah, I'm with you. So yeah, Lira and Young for me. If you want a mid pricer, for me it's probably Millerer, even Coleman, and yeah, I think that's probably it as far as mid price range. Otherwise, try and find that extra defender if you can. I'd rather go the extra 23,000 on a Lear and get Whitfield, and then that would actually look a lot stronger for me. Moving into the midfield there, Bontempelli. So you got basically going the cheaper option, the young option. Don't mind the young option. I've been saying
And
I
this,
think it's a young takeover this year.
both teams have this. So I think they've both got the exact same midfield, but Bont Walsh Merritt, where a lot of people are
Merritt.
very.
No, I think Merritt is the newer one compared to
No,
the
no, I'm
last
pretty sure
one.
the other team actually had Merritt as
No,
well.
he had Petrarca.
Oh, he had Petrarca, did he?
Yeah,
Oh,
this
there you
one.
go.
Yes, look, they look
So
similar.
yeah. So
Same problem though. Another forward in your midfield. If you can help it, unless you are so dire and strapped for cash, or you're not sure if that midfield is going to be the makeup. So last year, I think we looked at the Dogs and we didn't know who was, you know, which midfielder was going to dominate, and there was a bit of uncertainty. So I ended up putting Dunkley into the midfield as a forward to provide some flexibility. I think realistically, you want to try and start your
Can I
forwards in the
just
forward
say
line.
straight off there, mate? There's 10,104 people that have Taranto in their team. Change him out now. He's apart from the fact he frustrates you because of his disposal efficiency. Toby Green's out for the first few weeks. Brett Daniels has just gone down too. They have no one else to play small forward or up in the forward line for them. Taranto
And
has been earmarked as their forward.
they've already said he'll be playing forward flank more than usual. That was on their website, I believe. Was it Cornelio? Apparently, has been training 80% sort of mid, and has been dominating as getting confidence. and doing well contested ball in the forward line and in the midfield. So I believe he'll have a better split than he has previously. Robertson is an issue for me. I like him, but again, you're picking a breakout for 343,000. I think Rao has much better upside for the same price. I'd rather go with Jerry Berry and save yourself 80,000, and he'll make you more money, in my opinion. Um, yeah, Stevens again. You look at the bench here: Brody, Stevens, Hobbs. That's so much money on the bench. Warner, is that young Warner? I can't see. How. Let me go.
Yeah, I think that's young Warner.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
young Warner, fair enough. But yeah, Hobbs, there's so much money on the bench. You're
There's a
looking
lot
at
of hype about
150,
Hobbs at the
160,
moment.
220,
Bombers,
way too much money on the bench.
yeah, Bombers played their one of their intra-clubby games today or something, or match sim and that, and Hobbs again was lining up in the midfield getting CBAs. That's the second match sim in a row that he's been playing there.
Okay, interesting.
So,
All right,
but
so for me, yeah, too much money on the bench. You need
and
to
it's
pick
been
which
kind
ones
of
you
a
want.
common thing. I've seen a few teams, Benny, where people slotting some of these guys on the bench, and you really want, your 123, your 117, and your 102 guys on the bench there, and that'll able to take your Taranto up to your 580, 600,000 player right there, or even your Robertson. Yeah, if you're not spending so much money on the bench, and like I know we like these guys, and if you can't decide between having Hobbs and Stevens and Horn Francis and Dacos McRae, Stevens, like because there's a lot of them, well, move out one of your primo midfielders. In this case, just take out Taranto, put them on field, and just get another 102k. We're going to have a ton of midfield rookies to choose from.
But
So,
but even if you went, say, Robertson down to say
mm,
a Berry, or even just got rid of him,
yeah,
Taranto to maybe someone better, obviously. But even if you just look at Brody, Stevens, and Hobbs, what's that like 30, 50, so 80,000 plus 100,000. So you're looking at 180,000 just extra cash in his midfield bench, and then all of a sudden you go, okay, well Georgiades, you throw 180,000 on that, you pretty much hit 500. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a
yeah,
Georgiades to a $500,000 player by just your bench.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's a Georgiades or a Dustin Martin equivalent of 5,000K,
Mm,
basically $5,000. Hey, can I have Georgiades? Or just by not having my bench parked with a whole fuck ton of cash, I can have a Dustin Martin type. That's just based off what I'm seeing here.
yeah.
Lynch for me is an issue. Who's the other Hawks ruckman?
Reeves and
Reeves.
McAvoy.
I think Reeves had first dig in their intra club. Lynch could get opportunities, definitely could, but he won't be set in stone for that role. It's going to be either depth, or if he does perform, he'll get a gig, but then he's not set for it because Reeves could easily overflip him. Williams, again, same with the money on the bench. I get it if you're, hey, ruck forward, but if you're going to have that, you might as well have him actually on field in your forward line with a cheaper forward ruck option on your bench so you can have some cover if you were set on that. Give it a miss is another give it a miss by don't park so much money on your pine, which is just a common theme. You look at how much that bench is, there's so much potential for on field. And remember, on field is all that counts. Bench cover is great if you have someone down or to loophole a rookie that goes well, but your bench does not give you scores. It does not help you each week. It does not help you in rank. It does not help you in your leagues. It just helps you generate cash. That's it.
Yeah,
And cover.
exactly. All right, Benny, do you have my team there, mate?
I think I might. McRae, Bontempelli, Tom Mitchell, Lockie
Yeah,
Neal,
that looks
Berry,
like my team.
Dacos Ward. Ooh, not bad. Oh, you're getting on the Heaney train.
Oh, I've moved on to the Heaney train.
Ooh.
And this is what
Me
amazing.
too.
One
Me
guy that I
too.
sent my team was bagging the shit out of me because they're like, to Goey and Heaney, you can't have those guys. So it's like, so the thinking around my team at the moment is like, I like mid forwards that are going to play midfield. And I don't want to buy into the hype, but Heaney at the moment is training the midfield. Well, it's going to happen at some point. So for now, he's
But it's
there.
been reinforced. It's
It
been
has been
reinforced
reinforced.
many times, and that's why
Yeah.
he is definitely on the consideration, and he's been in and out of my time in and out of my team. For me, it's just more structure as to whether I can fit him in.
Mm.
Dunkley is an issue. If you're going Dunkley, Heaney, Butters, then all of a sudden your Reynolds, your Kernows, and all the cheaper options kind of disappear because it doesn't work for structure. You can't be going and having 3 premium forwards and then still being able to fit in like 2 after you have Cornelio, who you're definitely having in, that's 4, and it becomes thin. You don't want to be having expensive players in your 250,000s in your F5 and 6 if you can help it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and then when you have McGuinness as well, 140,000, it just like the room just disappears. And then all of a sudden, these good rookies, like your Cobans and your Hollands and stuff, it's like, well, where are you going to put them if you're having all these players filled in with rookies? So, man, I'm liking it. Hey, Heaney for me, I'm definitely big on. And again, DeGoey maybe still gets enough forward time, but Heaney, it sounds like he'll be a mid only next year. Butters will be a mid only next year. So, and DeGoey could be, depending. So it's one of those good situations because a person playing midfield can easily average you 100 better than a forward can.
Yeah, exactly. And I've left the room there. Those other 3, it'll either be a case I want to have a look at Duncan. We know what we can get from Duncan. Dunkley, I'm still not 100%, convinced. I know 50% have him. Like
Easy draw though.
he has an
Easy
easy
draw.
draw and had a ripping start last year, but there's a guy named Adam Treloar who had a great final series. And do they go with him over? And then they've
You'll
also
be
got Bont.
swung. The
Still,
eye
they've still
test
got
in the
McRae.
preseason. The
Yeah,
eye
so it's a
test in the
watch for me for
preseason.
Dunkley. It could
You'll
change
be
that.
swung. You'll
The
be
Ruck's
swung on him or Treloar. Him or Treloar will
yeah,
definitely entice you during the preseason. I'm not sure which
exactly.
one. Yeah, it sucks. You're right.
Darcy and Grundy are just speak for themselves. I have had Darcy in and out because I might go the cheaper ruck, but at the moment I'm not confident with Witts and Bruce and those sort of guys. So I've gone the more expensive ruck and just locked them in. That midfield, like the Bulldogs draw, I'm sure we all talk about it in the Bulldogs podcast, but yeah, there's some games there that I really like the idea of having McRae and Bont. Like Bont, we know he's a yo-yo of scoring that, but they love him in Supercoach world. So on his day he can go massive. So that could McRae and Bont could very easily become Oliver and Steele or Miller. Um, but yeah, for now I like the 2 doggy guys, and I think they're going to be hurting for losing that grand final. So going to come out strong. Tommy Mitchell and Neil are just ball magnets, and I think both offer value. And then you've got Berry with Dakes and Ward. Ward's just smashing the track down at Hawthorn's training. Had a mate walking the dog, Painey, was giving me the bit of feedback there. And, Ward's apparently been looking really good, keeping up and running with the midfield group. So, yeah. And then the cheaper rookies, the little Gold Coast guy coming in after a couple of days ago. His numbers in the Sandfall have been awesome. And most likely that that St Kilda guy Haynes, when he gets put in, will find his spot in there. But why he's not there for now. And then moving on to the back line, Benny boy.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so Lloyd and Crisp, Crisp and Hall have been
Crisp has
interchanging depending.
been Crisp has been in and out of mine as well. More because he's been a notorious 90 odd average player for quite a while. And if he's playing midfield, then sure he could definitely maintain that. He had really good standard deviation. Didn't go too low, but he also didn't go too high. So for me, he's not really going to burn you that much. He's not going to pull out this real massive score that absolutely just fucks you over, and he's all of a sudden priced out, which is
Yeah,
kind of
and
why he's been getting out of my side at times.
he's been the same. Aaron Hall's been in there up until today. And I've kind of just made the switch when I was just playing around with things. So it's probably going to end up being one of them. It's just who I like better. Jaden Short hasn't left my side. Like, what's he in at the moment, mate? I think it's still 7% or
10% or
something.
so. That's not
10%
much.
now.
Yeah, I don't
8%.
know. It could be 12.
Yeah, it's
It's 8. Yeah,
8%. So,
bargain.
like, yeah, he's an absolute bargain. With Hooley in the side, he was averaging 95. Without Hooley, 105. Like that, there's value there for a guy who's going to
And
be
he
the
was young.
main
He's
man
young
coming out of
too.
Richmond's defence.
And he's young too, so now it's like
Yeah.
it's yours. He's now getting older, so it's your ball. He now knows it's reliant on him, and everyone knows it's reliant on him. So yeah, for me, Short, yeah, no brainer. He's probably been one of the biggest. Him and Lloyd have probably been the staples, like real stable in my side. Whitfield's kind of been in and out. It's the price point that keeps dragging me back, unfortunately. And yeah, apart from that, I'm a little bit unsettled with my other 2 spots in defense. And I think 4. I feel good with 4 at this point. I've even tried like Millera and stuff, and I'm like, oh, it just doesn't sit right. I think there's such good forward value that I don't need to go a mid-price defender. So I don't mind it. The rookies are all the same. It's all rookie watch at the moment, really. My team, it's not even like this. This was like an old team, but I'll bring it
Hmm.
up anyway. Um, Kind of, structure's been similar though, like four defenders with a couple of rookies and just trying to sort of work that out as far as price wise. I'm keen on Steel more because I had a look at their draw as well. It looks quite soft early, and with the new tackling rules, I think it's going to really help out Steel. So he was also had I think some of the most 150 plus scores in the comp. So I'm keen on him. Tuke Miller's probably been in and out of my side more because I like Tuke, but he's very expensive. Suns have a pretty tough draw to start with. I've had him interchanging with Bontempelli because they have a soft draw. And I've also had him down to Tom Mitchell, again, just being a pig status. But that Tom Mitchell buys me quite a lot of dollars. So it's all
Yeah.
just price points at this point in time. Horn Francis has kind of been on my side,
Yeah,
and Dacos. I'm not
sorry,
sold on
Ben. I'm
either.
just going to say something about Tuke there.
Yep.
The other issue now, and as I said, I've had him in and out of my side. Ben King going down. So that's their main focus to goal and those points and contested marks. So that's a big point scoring option there. Miller gets the ball, looks for King. That's not happening anymore. It's going to be probably Chol that's going to have to play that forward role. So yeah, that probably just rules Miller out for me completely now.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe yeah, Raul's still pretty good value. I guess he'll just kick it himself. Raul, he'll just
Yeah.
run through the center and bounce it and keep going. Horn Francis and Dacos, I'm having them as place getters. Sometimes, like the one I posted on Twitter just before, I've gone the cheaper option because I'm not sold on any of them. Dacos, his dad was saying like obviously you need to step up. It's a bigger level. He's not quite there, and it's still preseason, so he might get there by playing the intra clubs in the preseason game. He might lift to the occasion and then get there and be round one worthy. Horn Francis, the coach, has pretty much come out and given him obviously props. They want to give him props, but saying he's not best 22 right now. Now, again, that could change. He's might be playing that forward flank and lead up and then get some rotations through that midfield. But it's not that uncommon for these players. They might get to round one, but realistically, it's hard to expect them to get drafted and then what, a month and a half or a month or so later, they're all of a sudden they know the game schedule, they know the plan. They're now matching it with the big boys that have been in the system for multiple years and know the intensity, and their body can handle the intensity. It's a hard ask. And some of these players, and I'm sure they're very talented and they might actually get there by round one, they really do need to get good blocks of training together and perform at intra clubs and preseason games to be there round one.
Yeah, exactly. And
And
I,
it's not an easy.
I
It can't be an easy thing. Like
no,
it's
it can't be. And I've had Horn Francis and McRae both sitting there just because it's easier to go down than trying to find the money to go up to them. But yeah, I do have a bit of a worry. And we've talked about we like those guys who have been in the system 2 or 3 years. Remember, a lot of these under 18 guys, apart like Horn Francis is a little bit different because he has played seniors over in the Sandford, but the Victorian youngsters who are getting drafted this year have nearly had 2 years of their juniors wiped out because of COVID here in Victoria. So you're picking players who are coming in who have barely played any footy, and then you want them to catch up and try to reach senior level. Yeah, that's why
yeah.
someone
Even
like a
Sam Walsh.
Clark.
Oh
Yeah, that's why someone
yeah.
like a Clark is mature age.
Yep.
These players, clubs are looking more and more at because they know the rookies aren't going to be able to come in and have the impact they normally would.
Yeah, and that's why Sam Walsh was a freak because his fitness base was there. And then even then, when he got to the club, do you know what I mean? He actually lifted and had to go to a new level. And then when he played in round one, he killed it and he kept killing it. So they just left him there. But a lot of players, like North Melbourne last year was at Powell, they gave him a rest.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He got started to get beaten up, and it's a hard toll on the body. It's hard to back up week in and week out. They gave him a rest. And it wouldn't be surprising, you look at the depth that some of these teams have, it wouldn't be surprising if, yeah, they play quite a few rounds and all of a sudden people will be cracking the shits because they're getting rested for a round.
Hmm.
It's the perks of Stevens. I mean, I'm not Stevens has probably been out on my side for a little while. This is the PC that's logged in, so I'm not sure what's going on here. But look, that's pretty much how it's been. I'm tossing up again. Darcy, I've had at my R2, or in this case R1, because he's more expensive. But I'd much rather have Tom Mitchell than Darcy. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things. I've considered Wits. I've considered Bruce. Part of me's even gone, hey, if Hayes looks like he's going to be the number one ruck and gets it straight up, I'm like, man, maybe I would even play Hayes at R2 and Coburn as the bench. I've
I've considered it too,
actually,
Benny. I'm like, if
I've thought about it.
Lyce had got a bit of a niggle and injury because Ladhams has left, Hayes there with Comden and Jack Edwards from North Melbourne, who they
Yeah,
picked up number 1 in the preseason draft, are both forward ruck. So if they were the ones, if North go, okay, we're not going to go Zeri in the team. The unfortunate thing, they picked up Coleman Jones. It'd be so much better if he stayed at Richmond because, you could just have Comden and Jack Edwards as your R3. Your R3 and your D8 and
risk
alternate them
reward.
depending who's
But
in.
yeah, because I remember in years gone by, when everyone was picking, set and forget and whatever have you. I think it was, Nane Curvis and Wits were extremely cheap, and then I think there was someone else, but everything just, worked out. Whoever went that option absolutely killed it. I think Nane Curvis and I think Wits as your R1, R2 ended up being probably the best starting formula. It's just one of those things that I'd consider as a risk reward, knowing that I could probably trade in an English or something, worst case scenario, to kind of fix my team temporarily. Considerations, it's all preseason based for me. Berry, I'm definitely keen on Matty Rowell. I just can't seem to find the money for him with all the good rookies out there that are cheaper. I find it hard to fit in a Rowell at, an M5 with a Berry at M6, and Berry tends to win out because he's cheaper. But man, I don't know. People are skeptical, but Matty Rowell just, I still think he's a freak of nature, and that doesn't change in a year of just shit luck. Do you know what I mean? He seems like an absolute professional that would go about his business. He's good on both sides of his body. He can tackle. I just, you know what I mean? It's one of those ones where you watch a player and you still think he's a freak, even if he had a bad year.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
still want
no,
him. I still want him.
I get it. I get it, but the kid's only played 10 games still. And that I just want to see a little bit more of that price. And
Still a freak.
if he
Still a
starts off,
freak.
if he goes bang bang first 2 games, yeah, then I'll recorrect somehow. But I want to see it again, and that I'm just
Yeah,
worried
true. I
about
guess with
him
the extra
still
trades,
body.
yeah, I guess you could trade him in. But for me, if people are talking about injuries, I'd rather start him. And
Well,
if he gets injured, then move him. I
but
can't
they've
see him
been kind of
averaging
freak
less than his
injuries, so
average.
it's not like he's an injury prone player. It's just they've more of that freak side. I just want to see sort of how he fits in now with their setup.
I
Though
think
in
it's
saying that,
him, the pit bull. I think it's a pit
Hugh
bull.
Greenwood is gone, so
Yeah. I think Clayton
there
Oliver
is that
back a couple
person.
of years ago. Clayton Oliver, they put him in the midfield. That was his role, straight up midfield, and he went like 115. Matty Rowell is in that midfield 100% of the time. He is resting and playing midfield. It's who else is going to be in there? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you have a look at, as far as the bigger ones, it'll be Rowell and Took, and then a whole range of other players like your Andersons and your Wellers or whatever might come in there, etc. But do you know what I mean? He has to be playing basically pure midfield.
The one thing that makes me more tempted on Real as well, it's in 25% of teams. If he has a cracking, while they're doing that round of, unofficial practice matches, and then they have that preseason game. If he dominates one of those games, that percentage could go 35, 40%. And then it becomes a case where it's more risk not to have him than to have him.
Yeah.
And then, I'd be making the change.
Well, and if Dunkley apparently has been working on his running too, by the way. So whether that makes me either excited because Dunkley is now, he's worked on his running, so that his tank will be better. He'll be able to run out games more. That means he'll be able to have that bigger tank in the midfield. Or it's a bad thing because they want him to play more outside and he has to run further. Like I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. So, no, that's interesting. Those who have the sort of Supercoach Golden, or whatever it's called these days, it's looking at those percentages. You want to stay close to the grain early on. Don't be going out choosing 5 or 6 players with percentage under 5. You want to that for the premiums. You want to keep. There's nothing wrong with having one pod, but there's too many teams I think at the moment who are trying to get really creative and go, oh, I'm going to pick this guy because he's in 2% of teams. Just don't bother on that. Like you look at some of these players that have high percentages. We were just talking about it, like Oliver and Walsh, and they're like 30%. But even your Duncans and Crisp, 26, 27%, Rouse 25%, Gresham's 23%. So yeah, if you're looking at trying to get more of these high percentage players in, and then try to choose the ones you kind of like. So there is coach's choice. So naturally, Dakes and
Yeah,
Canelio are
just
up
trying to
there,
go
but
by just trying to go by highest price to then start to look at ownership and actually looking at, so Tuke 13.8. Again, there's definitely upside and downside. Bontempelli for 10%, I think it's a bargain. Worst case scenario, Bont plays a little bit more forward. I guess no. Worst case scenario, he doesn't get forward status and then doesn't quite get enough midfield time either. Would be the worst case scenario, but I think again, he still has a high ceiling. Lions extremely low ownership, but that's probably because of the Lockie Neal factor. Just a better price point, really. Tom Mitchell, low ownership, absolute pig. Can't believe Walsh is owned twice as much basically as Titch.
as the pig, yeah, I
That's
know. It's a see
Yeah, that's crazy.
Lions is a good one if Neil was coming into this season with a nickel, a bit like last year, and that if he was in that
Yep.
sort of thing, you'd go, okay, that 1% you could get the payoff. Where at the moment Neil's flying, he's fit, McCluggage is fit, so that 1% with Lion, just go down to Tommy Mitchell if you don't have him, or Sammy Walsh.
Yep. I
Um,
think
see,
Merritt and
uh,
Parrish, probably more Merritt
so low
has
owned.
3.3, has the potential to definitely be sort of top 8 to 10 mids. Especially if Parrish ends up doing a little bit more forward or whatever have you. I think Merritt handles the tag. He's definitely good value, but the issue is for 625, a lot of people are going, Walsh or Mitchell, but that's a pretty good point of difference to have for an Essendon player. That's really good to
Yeah.
have. Um,
Petrarca's under 10.
yeah,
Um,
just
I think, yeah, I still think there's value there with Petrarca. We saw what
Josh
he did
Kelly
in the finals.
2.4. Josh Kelly 2.4 is definitely. I think what was he last year? It was about 6 or 7%
Yeah,
though,
6 or 7.
and
I
that
was
and
all
that
over
and
him.
that yeah, and
No,
that
I
burnt
was all
me.
over him after you got rid of him. Was it you or
Yeah,
Chris? Yeah,
thanks.
you that got
Yeah,
rid of
no, it
him.
was me.
Yeah.
It was me.
Yes,
I
it
got
was
rid of him
you.
because he was playing. I got rid of him for Lockie Neal
Yeah.
because Josh Kelly was playing forward. Lockie Neal came back and then did his ankle in that tackle or whatever it was, basically. Yep. So basically, I brought in Lockie Neal for Josh Kelly. Lockie Neal gets injured. I'm like, well, I'm not bringing back in Josh Kelly. And I think I went Tom Mitchell, which worked out okay. But anyway,
Yeah, I think that was me, Dunkley.
Dangerfield
Yeah, that was
2.3.
Dunkley to Josh Kelly for me when Dunkley went down. It's probably the best trade I made last year.
I made lots of good trades and lots of bad trades. Fife and Danger are just so low owned. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Fife's going to be one of those ones come round 6 or round 12. Could be,
Heppel
everyone
1%.
fighting to get him in.
Heppel 1% should be playing wing. So that's another slider. Even for draft leagues, people are sliding. Heppel's averaged more than 100 many times. I think this is one of the first preseasons he's actually having too. They were saying Heppel's
Yeah,
killing the preseason. First time in, I think, 5 years. I think he said he's having like a full preseason,
yep, exactly.
playing the wing. So he's definitely good value. It wouldn't surprise me because everyone's ignoring him that Heppel comes out and averages his usual 103, 104, 105 that he used to do year in, year out.
Yeah, no, I think he's a great draft selection. That um, you know, Blake Hardwick is in 99 teams. I really like him in draft. Like he's been actually training with a lot with the midfield over
Where
the
is he?
summer, and he actually averaged really well as a defender. So, God no, but I get in standard. It's
Oh, there it
nobody's
is.
going
Yeah.
to touch him, and that as a defender. But he's actually a bit of a watch. Like if a Warple or somebody went down, um, like he could drop down to about 430, 440 early, and yeah, he's the next one that could end up in that Hawks midfield at some point throughout the year.
How?
Just
Caleb Daniel, 7.5%. How is there 4,107 bots? Absolute bots. Auto picked your team, 510,000. Who's your favorite team? Oh, the Doggies. They won the premiership. Here you go, Caleb Daniel. Go nuts.
I've been looking through Twitter teams, and there's quite a few people that have Caleb Daniel in their team. I don't know if it's because they like the helmet or what about that, but yeah, like he was serviceable last year.
He serviced
But
you. Oh,
yeah, he
Swiz.
sure did, the little man. No,
Are you
but yeah,
talking about
that
him or are you talking about you, little man? That was a penis joke.
Caleb Sarong's one that keeps coming up, 7.5%. Everyone's thinking he's the Sam Walsh breakout this year.
Yeah, it's possible though. I think they see Chera going, so they're like, "Oh, Sarong, if you do it more times than once, then you can't be so wrong."
And that's going to get that joke's
Never
going to
gets
come
old.
up on the Freo podcast.
Never gets old. Simpkin 1% could be he could actually be a real improver. Simpkin could be kind of like a Tuke Miller type contested ball winner. Looks fit as absolute F2. Like I've seen a photo of him and couldn't put my phone down for about 15 minutes. That's about how long it takes,
Well,
right?
he's only a midfielder, but I think he's one that could get dual position early on.
Really? I think they need him in the midfield.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but with
Cunnington gone.
but
Yeah, still
Greenwood
Greenwood.
coming in,
Who else is going to
that
be in there though with him? Greenwood.
Taron Thomas,
He like Simpkins
Cunnington,
midfielder before. Yeah, but Cunnington's not
Anderson,
there.
LD Poo.
Anderson's on leave because he didn't have his
Oh
jab.
yeah, that's right,
Cunnington's
because he wouldn't
obviously
get the
got
jab.
Cunnington's got testicular cancer, so he's out for the time
LDU.
being. Yeah, but still, Simpkins, he's the big body. He's
Yeah,
the
I know,
Tuke
but
Miller, and Greenwood gets to be Greenwood.
why couldn't he play 35% forward time in those first 6 weeks?
Because number one, he'll be playing midfield because the ball doesn't go forward of centre for North Melbourne. Do you not
Well,
even
that
know
is
the
true.
game? Do you not even
Yes,
know
that
the
is
game?
true. That is
Why
true.
rest him?
Fucking Aaron
Why
Hall.
rest him forward? If he plays midfield, he'll automatically be transitioned
Yeah,
into defence to retrieve the ball and at stoppages.
probably right. He probably picks up defender status, actually. The ball spends that much time down there.
No, I think he'll start in the midfield. The ball will go into defense, and everyone's like, "Why doesn't he have defender status? He got so much ball on the heat map in defense." But no, it turns out I think he's pivotal. I think he could be a Tuke Miller type. He's young enough. He's the big boy in that midfield now. So it wouldn't surprise me if Jai came out and started averaging high 100s. Don't think he'll be a top 10 worthy, but for draft leagues, Simpkin for me, I think could push high hundreds, 105 to 112 wouldn't be unreasonable.
Yep, for sure.
I don't know. It's a gut feel thing, but when you look at
It
that
is. It
midfield,
is.
it
But it's
has
one
to
of
be
those things
his.
again. It's like, unless you're like a North supporter or something like these sort of low percentages, really should be staying over that 10%. Probably the only difference is the Rucks. The Rucks is really throwing a bit of a spanner in the works at the moment, as we were talking about before. Like, it's either play it
Oh,
safe and go your big two, or do you
you
just,
know what's frustrating? The big O, right? Oscar, the press conference and the
oh,
actual quotes of what he said, people are saying, "Oh, Oscar's sharing ruck status, and he might get forward sharing ruck, and he might get forward." And you're saying he'll be happy if he just plays 20%, 25%, 35% for of ruck time. It was a hypothetical. He's not actually going to be getting that much, like that little ruck time. He's basically what he said is that he would love 5 big men to be playing. He would love if there was 5 rucks in the team. He loves rucks. He can't get enough of them. And he is just extremely ecstatic and fucking stoked to be playing football, right? For the Lions, stoked to be playing football. He'll just do whatever the team needs. And if whatever the team needs is if they play 5 big men, he's happy to play 20% or 35% ruck and do whatever is needed to be done. So everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Fort's going to be the number 1 ruck and Big O's going to get forward status." I'm like, "Oh my god, did you actually look at the whole thing, or are you just looking at a few little snapshots that people are posting for a bit of clickbait?" It frustrates me. Darcy Fort is going to play chop out like Joe Danaher did, etc. They're waiting for Hippie to come back. Fort's great cover. Fort will chop out and play some ruck, and Big O might rest forward, but he will still be the predominant ruck.
yeah, for sure.
The only
Talking
concern
about
is that he'll get chopped out, whereas I think his big scores at the end of last year was just him,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because Danaher had to stay forward. They didn't have a chop out for a hip because Hipwood was gone, so the Big O had to play big minutes running up and down the ground as the actual ruck. So he might actually score slightly less than people are expecting. If they're going for off the 115 average.
Yeah, for sure. Luke Jackson's in 10% of teams. But here
Ooh.
come, here comes the Ruck breakout. No, not this year, guys. Not this year. One more year.
No. And again, he had some really good games, but then still didn't score that well from those good games. So they'll come along. It'll be better.
Yeah.
Like Darcy, you kind of look at and you're like, oh, it looks good. But until he actually gets gone out of the team and starts rucking predominantly, Jackson, he's not a goal kicking ruck. He's a pinch hit ruck forward. And they generally, unless they get a lot of ruck time or kick a lot of goals, don't score extremely well for Supercoach. Draft leagues, maybe if you have a deep draft league, it might end up going 80, but yeah, nothing keeper worthy.
Talking about drafts quickly, Ben, because I'm in one at the moment, which is 16 teams. One
Ooh,
question I did,
Taylor Adams. Who's Taylor Adams gone?
one not yet. One
I'm
of the
big on
questions
Taylor
I had is
Adams.
about the rucks and that. So if you're in an 8 or 10 team league and you don't miss out one of the big boys in Grundy or Darcy, just pump the rucks. You can
Yep,
wait
leave it.
because there's going to be plenty of rucks later on in these
Or
larger
get
ones.
or
Where
get
it's,
Tommy English earlier on,
yeah, yeah.
like slightly earlier on. Put him in your ruck line, and then that way everyone knows you're not desperate for a ruck, and you might be able to pick up someone decent later and put them into your ruck, and then English into your forward line.
Yep, exactly. So you got that option, or if you're in one of these, 16 or 18. Well, then, we're seeing it so far where we've had, I think we've had 32 picks, and I think 6 rucks have already gone off the board. So, that even then, there's still Lysett, Draper, Nankervis. There's some decent rucks who've got the ability to score 85, 90 that you can pick up instead of sort of reaching at somebody who might go 105, 110. And I'm finding that, like, I think Natanui, Riley O have already gone off the board in those first 2 rounds. It's like, it's a bit early. So, you can, I think, rucks this year, definitely. And there's actually a lot of depth in the defense. The forward line naturally is always where those, I know a lot of people like to stream and punt forwards, but the top forwards, there's not that many of them outside what we pick up from the dual position players in round 6 and 12. So, I would prefer to, if you're going to make a move early for another line, it's definitely the forwards with your Duncans and Dunkleys,
Yep.
because, there's plenty of rucks and defenders that you can get later on.
And plenty of defenders averaging 90 plus as well. Forwards definitely do dip. As for the ruck thing, I think the last. So what have I won? Two out of the last. What I won 2 in a row, lost one, won one. So I think I've won 3 of the last 4 maybe of the draft leagues of a competitive 12 team or 10 to 12 team league. And I think most of those I've actually just passed on the ruck for the sheer reason that everyone jumps early and I'll just get whoever. So I think last year I actually had Darcy, which really annoyed me because he started off a bit slow and I dumped him for a speculative up and comer, which kind of hurt. But I did manage, I got like Hickey at some point. When he got injured, I managed to pick up, some other players. So I think, like your Mumfords and your other Flynns and all these other ones I was able to get that were very serviceable. And then I think at one point I ended up just loopholing. I had an extra midfield player that I just managed to pick up and I was loopholing them. So there are so many options. If you don't get the early rucks, there's so much there. So much. It's stupid how good you can get a ruck late.
And what a lot of draft leagues also are doing, like the 6 on the bench or the 8 on the bench this year because of COVID. So
Yeah,
if
we
you're in
are.
one of those leagues that does that, and let's just say you pick up Lysett 12th round, 14th round, go and get Sammy Hayes 18th, 19th round, because then you
Nah,
handcuff them. Lysett goes out, you just bring Hayes in on your field. So
nah.
handcuff
You
the
don't need
rucks
to
where
do that. You
possible.
don't need to do that. You don't need to handcuff in a draft league. There'll still
Yeah,
be
if
another.
you've got a big enough bench, you go and
There'll still
handcuff,
be
mate.
nah. There'll still unless you're playing a 16 team or whatever you're doing. There's still plenty of ruck options that you'd be able to get by that point. You'd be
If
able to
your
get
bench is
a
big,
Wits
if your bench is big enough,
or
Ben,
a
if you've
Wits
got one
on
of
your
these
bench.
4 bench ones, no. But if you've got a big enough bench, 6 or 8 on your bench, go and handcuff, mate. You'll never be in trouble with your rucks.
No, just loophole away. Free
Loophole
loophole each
away.
week. Loophole each week. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, if you're into handcuffing 80s, but look, we'll see. That's a real harsh statement.
No,
Um,
I like it, Benny. Well,
Adams, Taylor Adams. Taylor Adams. I'm big on him this year. If he stays fit
yeah,
and healthy, it's his midfield.
it is
It's
his
his
midfield. It is.
obviously fantasy relevant, but hopefully for Supercoach could go 110. Taylor Adams could be back this year.
Could be,
It's
mate.
his midfield. It's his body that's the
That'll be
issue,
our
but
next show, won't it be? Chris talking for 45 minutes about Taylor
Taylor
Adams and
Adams?
Crisp's
Ooh,
midfield.
I don't know. I think he's getting a bit of love for IQ. I think he's starting to get a bit of a
Oh, yeah.
bromance happening. He's like sending videos like, "Oh, look at his rig. Look at the six pack as he's rebounding out of the 50." And I much prefer the six pack in my fridge, Chris.
Love it.
Um,
Oh, I think that probably wraps us up, Benny. But
I think it
if
does, mate.
anybody else wants to shout out to us on Twitter or on
That's a
YouTube about their
long-winded session.
teams or and stuff like that, maybe we'll get together at some point later in the preseason and go through a few more and try to give some more advice as we know the rookies and where people are going to be playing.
Yeah, I think that's right. Thank you very much. That was 50 minutes long-winded chat there, guys. I thought that was going to be real quick, Swizz. We just got
Yeah, I
carried
thought it was
away and
too, but yeah, I had to shit
we
all
had
over Nico's team, so fuck
too
him.
much fun.
Yeah,
Too
that was
much
good.
fun. Thank you very much. Anyway, until next time, guys. Collingwood's next, so enjoy that nice little ragtag that hopefully Chris will be here for. Until next time. See you later.
Beautiful. Cheers.
Bye.